Give me the thumbs up when you're ready.
Up to about 5 for this.
I know we get a lot of requests for the recordings and the links through Facebook too for all our forums.
I'll look at you when you're ready.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
Yep. Good to go.
Good evening and welcome to the League of Women Voters of Winona General Election Forum for Winona Area Public Schools Districts 3, 4, and 5 candidates. I'm Stephanie Nuttall, your moderator for this event. Our timekeeper for this evening is Wendy Draves. The League of Women Voters is a nonpartisan volunteer organization organized at the local, state, and national level to encourage citizens to become educated and participate in government. While we as a league do study and take stands on issues, we do not endorse or support political parties, candidates, or tell the voters how to answer referendum questions. We do, however, read statements from candidates who are unable to attend forums. I'd like to start off tonight by thanking our 2020 forum co-sponsors, the Advocacy Center of Winona, AAUW Winona Branch, Home and Community Options, Project Fine, Winona Occupational Rehabilitation Services, the WORC, and the Winona State University Department of Social Work. LWV Winona would also like to thank the City of Winona for allowing us to hold this educational forum in the council chambers and for the use of their wonderful staff and technical assistance for this forum. Due to the COVID-19 national pandemic, we are providing this forum via government access channels as well as a Zoom option. The general public is not in physical attendance. This evening, we welcome Winona Area Public Schools candidates. For District 3, candidates Tesla Mitchell and Stephanie Smith. For District 4, candidates Tori Moore and Jim Schul. And District 5 candidates Kenneth Kirsting and Tina Leonards are unable to join us this evening and were given the opportunity to provide a statement. Tina Leonards did provide a statement and we will read that as part of the candidate opening statements. This forum is intended to provide voters with information so they can make an educated choice on the ballot. The views expressed in this forum are those from the candidates. We do encourage our members as individuals as we encourage all of you at home to get involved in your community. The LWV Winona participation policy and ground rules were provided to the candidates with their invitation to attend. This is a live cable TV broadcast with a Zoom option. The public was invited to submit questions for candidates through the LWV Winona email site or its Facebook page. Question sorters from the LWV and its co-sponsors viewed the questions, and the LWV moderator has final selection of questions to the candidates. Questions may be revised, consolidated, or modified as determined by the moderator. This forum is being recorded, may not be edited, and must be broadcast in its entirety and in accord with all FCC regulations. Candidates may share via Facebook the taped forum in its entirety. The LWV never edits or takes snippets from the forum tapes to share through any public media. The taping is for public view to view in its entirety to assist with ballot choices. The LWV will determine questions to be asked and attempts in good faith will be made to cover all areas of interest expressed in advance of the forum by the public. The candidates do not know the questions in advance. Any questions that are hostile, partisan, embarrassing, inappropriate, or of a personal nature will not be asked, and questions on similar topics may be grouped. All questions at the end of the forum become the property of the League of Women Voters. Candidates will strictly observe time limits on responses. The timekeeper will hold up cards to indicate their time is about to expire, and when the stop card is displayed, the candidate will stop at the end of their current sentence. For opening statements, candidates will have 2 minutes. For question responses, they will have 1 minute, and for a closing statement, they will have 1 minute. Candidates will be addressed by their first names, and we are going to begin now with our opening statements. Our first speaker will be Tesla.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Tesla Mitchell. It's super exciting. I get to be first. Woo! So being a journalist in the Winona area for nearly a decade, I have had the honor and privilege to explore all different areas of Winona, and that has been really awesome and such a privilege. I have gotten to report on everything from the downtown fire, of which we got up at 3 o'clock in the morning to report on. I've gotten to report on everything from the city council. I actually sat in the desk right next to this in a different capacity, so that's exciting. And I've gotten to do many feature stories across Winona, and it's been seriously a privilege to do them. One area that I've seen in our community that needs more community support is our public school district. As in any community, the public school district is one of numerous pillars that determines the strength of the community. And unless all of the community pillars are strong, the community itself is weakened. And considering that we have a sizable achievement gap, we have dwindling enrollment that's gone down about 1/3 since 1996, and not enough resources in areas of which we've had programs that are cut, like 4th grade orchestra or elementary softball and baseball. We don't have enough resources in areas. And we have a population of kids who have clearly said that they do not feel heard or supported. So I'd say we have some work to do as far as bringing community support to our public school district. And that's exactly what I hope to do. I intend on bringing my skill set as a journalist of listening and researching and being able to bring that to the table. So I'm listening to all of you and hearing your input and then forming that into a narrative that I'm making decisions on. So I appreciate your time in watching this, and thank you for your participation in this voting season.
Stephanie?
My name is Stephanie Smith. I'm actually running for 3rd District as well. I was born and raised here in Winona, and my children go to school here as well as I went to school here. I agree with Tesla's statement that the community needs to be involved in our schooling system. Our community really takes a lot from the school, and the school can't excel without the community, and the community isn't doing well without the schools doing well. So I feel like a big part of our schooling problems are that teachers and children aren't being heard. There's a big communication gap, even between parents and teachers. There needs to be somebody that fills that gap, and I just feel like that would be something that I'd be willing to do. So thank you very much for watching.
Terry?
Tori.
Tori.
No worries.
Typo.
It happens a lot.
Tori.
All right. Good evening, everyone. My name is Tori Moore, and I'm running for the seat in District 4. I'm a graduate from Winona Senior High School, and our 2 children are enrolled in the Spanish immersion program at Jefferson. My parents were both teachers at one time in the district, and I've owned and ran an independent sales agency in the outdoor industry for the last 23 years. And as they say, all politics are local, and it doesn't really get any more local than your local school district. It's where our future citizens are educated. It's a central feature of the community. It's a place where young people come to learn, they come to feel welcome, and expand their horizons. Good schools are essential to employers as well in attracting prospective employees. So in short, to be a strong community, you need to have strong schools. And as a board member, I'd like to see the district making additional investments into our schools and teachers. Our focus should be on bringing students into the district, not mitigating the departure of them. It seems that for too long, the district's been engaged in the process of cutting budgets, cutting activities, cutting schools, and then after seeing students leave the district, continue the same cycle over again. We cannot budget cut our way to success. Our schools, our teachers, and our students deserve better. Academics, arts, music, sports, community support all factor into a parent making the choice to send their student to public school. We have successful programs in these schools. Let's expand them. There's a waiting list for the immersion program. Let's add to that with a French or German or a Chinese option. We have fantastic music, arts, and athletics program. Let's grow them. There are huge shortages of skilled tradespeople in the job market. Adding curriculum that would allow for middle and high school students to explore options for their careers beyond focusing college preparation would be beneficial. And let's make sure our schools are safe, welcoming spaces for the children. Let's keep the community informed using open, transparent communication and updates. And let's make sure that prospective parents know that there are educational opportunities for their children that can only be found in the public schools.
Jim?
I'd like to thank the League of Women's Voters for this event and promoting our democratic way of life. I've been looking forward to sharing with all of you. I even washed my hair today, and I'm wearing my favorite sport coat. So why am I on the school board? Why am I running again? I'm not angry. I'm not looking for something to do. I do not have personal gains in mind. Why then should I run? Well, here's why. I'm an advocate for public education. My whole professional life has been devoted to it. I know a thing or two about public education. I study public education to prepare teacher candidates for a living. I just got done with a class of teacher candidates 2 hours before this session. It only makes sense to me that I serve to help public education. I have a desire to help my neighbors. I think improving public education is a great way to help my neighbors. I want to serve my country. Public education is intrinsically linked to American democracy. If I help improve public education, I am helping to improve our democratic way of life. I care for marginalized populations. I want to advocate and support those who are often forgotten or ignored in our society due to race, sex, gender, ableness, sexual orientation, or social class. I enjoy serving you. I believe that I'm making a positive difference on the board already. It is incredibly satisfying for me that I can be part of the solution. There are times when change is necessary on the school board. Now is not one of those times. Thank you.
Candidate for District 5, Tina Leonards, has also provided a statement, which I will now read on her behalf. I apologize for not being able to be at the forum tonight. I wanted you to know that I don't have a definite platform or agenda in mind for my reasons for running for school board. It is the same as before. I want what is best for all students. I believe all students deserve the best education that we can give them, and I will continue to be a voice for our rural families. This will be my third term if elected. I've been through 5 superintendents and now a pandemic. I believe the district needs stability first and foremost. I will continue to strive to achieve this for our students, staff, and families. I have and still will continue to make my choices based on what is best for all students. I hope this evening goes well, and good luck to the candidates who are participating. Tina Leonards. Thank you, candidates, for your opening statements. We're now going to move on to our questions. And for our first question, we will start with Stephanie. What issue is most important to you as a candidate?
As a candidate, I think the communication is the most important to me. When my kids are doing this distance learning, I need to know what assignments are due, when they're due. I feel like the teachers need to set forth some sort of curriculum where we know what they're doing for the entire semester, and then that be prepared prior to the school year starting or that semester starting. So then that way I know exactly what's involved. I know what my child needs to be prepared for. I think communication is a huge issue that we have right now, and it needs to be addressed.
Tori?
For me, I think really the key issue for me is going to be the figuring out a way to stop the students and losing students within the district. Everything that comes down to the cutting of the budgets, the ability to offer programs, everything that goes along with that all comes back to the fact that as students leave the district, they take that funding with them. If the more funding we lose, the less we are able to offer, and the more that we are going to end up having to cut, to change, and not allow us to do the things that we really need to do to provide communication, to provide resources, to provide support. And so really, I think in order to do that, we need to figure out a way to stop the loss of students coming to the public schools. And I think the best way to do that is to invest in the public schools and give parents a reason to send their kids to public schools that they cannot find anywhere else in the area.
Jim?
Yeah, that's an easy answer for me. The most important thing coming up for the district is, quite frankly, is how our district is assessed by the state, and it's through the World's Best Workforce strategic plan that our district set forth. There are 5 goals for the World's Best Workforce. 1 is all children are ready for school. 2, all 3rd graders can read at grade level. 3, all racial and economic achievement gaps between students are closed. 4, all students are ready for career in college. And 5, all students graduate from high school. I want to rally our entire district around these goals so that we can achieve them, so that we have a school system that is excellent and stands the test of time? Thank you.
Tesla?
Well, thank you for the question. For me, the biggest issue is racial equity. We have seen an uprising of the issue of institutionalized racial inequities across the United States, and Winona is no different. And we need to be serious and take a look at that because it's an issue that needs to be addressed. We had in June a rally of which students, former and current, had spoken about their stories and their realities and their lived experiences, and we need to take those seriously. We need a cultural liaison. We also need to update our curriculum to be more culturally relevant, and we also need to hire more teachers of color so that students of color are able to relate and have someone to go to, and also see someone represented who looks like them in a teacher setting. So that is a big topic for me, as well as finding more community support for our programs. We need to fund our programs so that we're able to do things like having fourth grade orchestra or having sports. Thank you.
All right, for our next question, we will start with Tori. How will your personal, educational, and professional experiences contribute to building a more equitable and inclusive Winona Area Public Schools community?
Well, I think one of the things that I look at is, in order to contribute to an equitable, you have to have the resources to provide services, to provide the educational opportunities that you can get for those students. And in order to do that, you do need to have the budgets that are able to be able to support that. And so when I look at that, is I think the cultural liaisons, I think counselors within the schools, increased curriculums, even with regard to languages, things like that, all of those kind of come together to provide increased opportunities there. But you do need to have the ability to fund those. And for me, I think I want to be able to fund all of those in order to provide all those increased educational opportunities.
Jim?
Yes, so I'm a professor of education. I study this for a living, and we need to understand equity. It's spoken a lot about, but I'm not sure if we always understand it. And so here are some resources. I'd recommend everyone reads Someone Has to Fail by David Labrie. I'd recommend everyone listen to the podcast, Nice White Parents, that are directly connected to how school functions. Sometimes the loudest voices of equity are actually contributing to inequitable practices of schools all across our country, including our district here. So first of all, we need to understand gaps, that oftentimes these types of gaps are inherited by schools. And therefore, we need to examine in our district where our district is serving predominantly white students, and then we need to recruit and retain more non-white students in these programs. Thank you.
Tesla?
Can you repeat the question for me, please?
How will your personal, educational, and professional experiences contribute to building a more equitable and inclusive Winona Area Public Schools community?
Awesome, thank you. I definitely feel like my background as a journalist really helps me in this. So for 8 years solid at the Winona Daily News, my main skill set was in asking questions, researching, listening, finding voices who aren't always asked those questions, and then gathering that input, putting it together into a narrative that other people can understand, including myself. And I definitely intend on bringing that forward. I intend on building relationships, which is what I'm good at. And finding those voices that can help me make decisions at the school board level, because I am not a person who has all the answers. And I admit that coming right in, I do not have all the answers. And that's where I need your input. I need you to help tell me what your thoughts are and what your input is, what your solutions are, so that you have that at the table as well. That's really important to me. So I definitely intend on using my skill set as a journalist, and a journalist always at heart, to bring that to the table and make sure that equity is being balanced out.
Stephanie?
I would say that me being a parent would, and just a family member in general, and previously being a paralegal, I had to look into things and be ready for anything that could come across. You'd have to deal with different types of people, so you look at everyone the same. You don't see a certain person a certain way. I definitely in my family alone, there's such an abundance of a melting pot. I'm just willing to listen to anyone and definitely want to be a voice for any parent or any community member that has anything to say regarding what we could do to improve our district and make schooling better for our children.
For our next question, we'll start with Jim. With the current pandemic, some families do not have good access to Wi-Fi, and some parents are not able to supervise children doing hybrid or online learning. How can we reach out and help those children who are struggling to learn in the current situation so that they are not left behind?
Well, that's one thing that our district's doing. We've initiated a study group to examine social services for within our district to help our families out. So what we need to do is just, quite frankly, keep in communication with families. That's what we're doing. John Casper is our communications director, and he's doing a fabulous job. But what I did was I walked around some communities, predominantly non-white communities in our town, and I asked them how the school year is going. And so that's what we need to be doing more of, reaching out, walking out into the community, asking them questions, and then responding. And quite frankly, we've got that in place, but I'm never satisfied. We need to keep doing more of that.
Tesla?
Yeah, honestly, I wish I had a really great answer for this one. I feel like this is an incredibly hard time for so many people and so many families. And myself as a parent, I have a 5-year-old who is in the Rios program right now. She's loving it, by the way. But I'm thankful that right now I'm staying home and I'm able to help out with distance learning. But I know that there are so many families out there who are struggling with that. I wish I had the golden answer. And it seems like any answer that I find is one where there's super downfalls on one side. So I'm really not sure, but I'm really open to hearing other people's solutions and ideas and really brainstorming on what could help kids, especially who don't have access to the internet and who, I'm especially concerned for students who have younger siblings and who maybe have a single working family or working parent and who are the older sibling and having to be at home helping not only do their own schoolwork, but also their younger siblings' schoolwork. There's a lot there that needs to be addressed, and I don't have all the answers. I wish I did.
Stephanie?
Honestly, I think that we should try and get our children back in school as much as possible. I think that being a parent and full-time working, having 2 children at home, one in high school and one in middle school, it is very difficult. I mean, even them going hybrid right now, but speaking with a lot of parents within the community, I know that a lot of people have unenrolled their students from District 861 because our school board was resilient to put the children in our district full-time. And with that going on, I think that, we should reach out to HBC as they did last year and try and figure out how to get those families, the internet that we did and just other community members helping each other. Obviously we're still looking for ideas. So if anybody has any, you can feel free to reach out to me and I'd be happy to speak for you.
Tori?
I think this has been one of the super big challenges with regards to making sure that there's equity for the folks that have access to the technologies. They have access to parents being home. They have access to maybe other helpful folks that can help out while they're doing that. And I think some of the stuff that we can do, I think there's definitely some technology driven side of it. Obviously, all of that does take resources. It does take the expertise to do it. Hotspots, things like that you could use in order to provide internet for those folks that may not have it. Maybe something like having Key Kids or some of those local community-based things where those kids could go and receive educational opportunities. But man, it's a hard one. Obviously, we're not that long into it. Obviously, I think it's a challenge. I think going forward, I think that those challenges have been there, but I think will continue to go forward. And I think that there's no easy answer to that either.
For our next question, we're going to start with Tesla. What do you believe are the greatest challenges for Winona area public schools, and how do you envision the district working to overcome those challenges?
Great question. And some of those I've already talked about. Racial inequities is definitely one that I think is a huge challenge for us moving forward. I've already touched on that, so I'm going to put that aside for just a second. But definitely enrollment rates. And I think that the best way for us to help with our enrollment rates is to support our programs that we've had to cut in the last few years. Orchestra being one of them for 4th grade. Those different types of programs are what make it a wonderful cake, and it's the cherry on top and the frosting and everything else. It makes it something awesome. And we need to put that back on. We need to offer programs that drive kids in. We can't sell them on it. We have to show them through the things that we're doing. So I definitely think that moving forward, we need to fund those programs, and we need to make sure that kids are having and being offered programs that they're interested in. Thank you.
Stephanie?
Could you please repeat the question?
Okay. What do you believe are the greatest challenges for Winona Area Public Schools, and how do you envision the district working to overcome those challenges?
I think funding is obviously a very huge issue for this district. That's something that we keep going back to, and nobody has yet come up with a solution. I feel like maybe it would be a job of somebody that's willing to research it. I myself would be willing to do so, and go through the funding, go through the opportunities that we have for being able to save dollars and dimes and then turn that into updating the curriculum and making things better for people to want to come to our schools, and change the curriculum, set it up so that people can learn about trade skills or finances or how to buy a house, take out a home loan, those kind of things that people should be learning in this.
Tori?
Well, I think the biggest challenge is obviously one right now is the pandemic. That has thrown a wrench into everything. It has really upended the overall educational system for pretty much everyone. And so I think that is a challenge that the district is definitely doing a good job of working to try and figure that out. But then coming back to what was echoed or said before was the budget side of it. We have students leaving the district, they take with them the funding, and that takes with them the opportunity to offer these other programs. So as I look at it, I think, how do we solve those problems? I think we need to, I think we probably need to add some programs back in. I think we need to take a look at something, increased funding, whether it's a referendum, something like that. And when we look at doing something like that, do it to the point that we can offer these programs and we can put these opportunities back in instead of doing the bare minimum that we've always done in order to just barely get by. Let's build something.
Jim?
So my time as a school board member, I found out that there are always going to be fires to put out. And that's what we're supposed to do as a public institution, is put out these fires. That's just our job. But the problem is those fires cannot be our focus, because they cannot deter us from focusing on our primary goal. And I don't have a real sexy idea. I'm going to repeat what I said earlier. The primary challenge facing our district is for our district to fulfill the 5 goals set forth in the World's Best Workforce Strategic Plan. If we are successful in providing a curriculum that meets those goals, everything else is resolved, including enrollment.
For our next question, we will start with Stephanie. What is your experience and/or knowledge regarding underserved students, families, and communities? How will this or these contribute to improving the quality of education and overall experience for these populations in the Winona Area Public Schools?
My experience is my family has been on this list. We have had to apply for free or reduced meal lunches or school lunches. We've had to participate in those programs, and I've eventually found my way up the ladder here. And a lot of my family is still within that category. And I would work with families to see different opportunities in the community that we can get things like free lunches. I've looked into Title I schooling. WK is actually listed as a Title I school and would be a great opportunity to look into getting free school lunches for that school, even when it's not a pandemic.
Tori?
I think we need to expand some of the opportunities that we have in order to serve some of these communities. I think things like ECFE, some of the outreach programs that we do to give those folks within the community the ability to take advantage of the things that the school district has to offer. And in doing so, not leaving people behind, but figuring out a way to get out and reach out to those within the community.
Jim?
Yes, the key word for me that when you asked that question was access. We need to make sure we have access for all of our students. We should not be having initiatives in the future where basically we're serving nice white middle class families. We need to focus on serving all of our students and making sure that our programs are accessible, that there aren't wait lists, that everyone can do it, the paperwork is minimal. Paperwork is awful for the families that are in low socioeconomic status. We need to make sure that we have access. So we need to recruit and retain our students, all of our students, into our programs, into a comprehensive program that includes the arts and humanities. Thank you.
Tesla?
Can you repeat the question one more time?
What is your experience and or knowledge regarding underserved students, families, and communities? How will this or these contribute to improving the quality of education and overall experience for these populations in the Winona area public schools?
Awesome, thank you. So as far as underserved, there's a couple of different population groups that I think of, and one of them is the teenagers and children who are struggling, either mentally or physically or in their home life or in just circumstances that have been in their lives. And I was one of those. I was a teenager who had some serious trauma in her life and who had to go through that and cope through that throughout my teenage years in school. And I can see where the help that I got from the schools, as well as the help that I didn't get from schools. And I definitely want to make sure that we're supporting kids and that we have support systems in place. The other underserved population that I'm thinking of is our students of color, which is why I'm really advocating for that cultural liaison, because those children need someone that they can go to that understands their lived experience and can relate and help advocate for them and help be a sounding board for them. There's so much to that we need to take seriously. So as far as experience as well, I'm in the Diversity and Equity Committee for WAPS. I've been for about a couple months, and so I'm understanding, sorry, there's a stop sign and I should stop now.
All right, for our next question, we will start with Tori. What specific action steps do you believe Winona area public schools should take to build trust and improve relationships with students, families, and communities of color?
With families of color. I think the cultural liaison, having somebody in the school that is that looks like them, that has some of the same experiences that they have, I think is one really good way to do that. Offering some of the additional curriculums potentially. Also being able to reach out and go through and have folks, whether it's counselors, whether that early childhood type of thing, being able to reach out and work with them and essentially be able to give them a window into what they need to do to get involved, how help them get involved, offer some assistance in things such as internet access, things like that, in order to bring them more fully into kind of the school and within the school community.
Jim?
Yes, so I have three areas here to answer your question. So first of all, we need to have a culturally responsive curriculum that's multidimensional in its component. Take a look at some of the work of James Banks from the University of Washington on that front. We need to have equitable practices throughout our district. I just recently took an implicit bias training. We need to have more of that, improve that, do more of those types of matters, but also have equitable practices permeating in our district. I've said this several times already. We need to have community outreach. We need to be more responsive to our non-white communities. And I'm going to put the onus a little bit on our Winona community as well. I think sometimes WAPS is the lowest hanging fruit. So I'm not hearing anything about having arts and music festivals that that are responsive to our non-white community members. They need those events as well. Thank you.
Tesla,
Okay, so the question was, what would we do to respond?
what specific action steps do you believe Winona Area Public Schools should take to build trust and improve relationships with students, families, and communities of color?
Thank you. First, we need to start building relationships with families of color, and we especially need to be nurturing the ones that were already there. There's been some conflict with the group Our Voices, and that was a really great opportunity for us as a district to be nurturing a relationship. And that unfortunately did not exactly happen. And, that was an opportunity missed. Moving forward, though, we do absolutely need to be building relationships with families of color, so we're hearing what they're saying, and so that they are finding ways as well. So we're communicating ways for them, opportunities for them to get involved. Because the more families of color that we have involved in decision making, that's where equity actually gets raised up. So it's super important. As well as I agree with Jim, we need our curriculum to be overhauled to be more culturally relevant and to show the true historical side of our cultural history, as well as, I'm gonna say it again, cultural liaison. Also, there's
Thank you.
shoot.
Stephanie?
I think that the teachers need to talk to the students and the families and create communication. I think that we could do a curriculum update. I think maybe just taking people seriously and talking to them like they're people, because they are. And that's the end of it, I think. I mean, I see the group Our Voices. You could definitely communicate with them and set up some sort of coalition to be able to do something. I'm sorry, I'm distracted. There's a bar there. But in other words, just talk to them. Just talk to these families. Talk to these people in our community. And it's not just kids of color, it's kids of any kind of poverty in our town. They're treated differently than everyone else. They're treated like they're the bottom of the totem pole, and nobody likes to feel like that. I've been a person on the bottom of the totem pole in this community, and it doesn't feel good.
Thank you. Next question, we will start with Jim. What future collaborations between Winona Area Public Schools and other institutions or organizations do you believe may contribute to improving the district and Winona community, and how so?
Yeah, this summer, thanks for that question, whoever posed it. It's important. This summer, I initiated, and the board approved unanimously. I made the motion and initiated the idea of having study groups. One study group is going to focus on social services and addressing how the district is providing social services and what social services are needed in the district. And it's going to be made up of community members as well as staff throughout our district. The other one is focusing on our music program. How we can recruit and retain more students, how we can provide a sustainable, enriching music experience for our community. And once again, it's going to involve community members and staff within our district. It's going on right now, and I'm excited to hear the report later on about that. Thank you.
Tesla?
A couple of organizations that immediately come to mind is Project Fine. Project Fine is amazing and has done so much for our Winona area. And I really feel like there's an opportunity there to work with them to really help find ways to celebrate the different cultures in our community and really have a positive experience with that. I mean, I would definitely love to see some murals around in our district of different cultures that are represented here. Another one that I really like is Engage Winona. Engage Winona has done so much for our town and our community as well. And I really find that Engage Winona is great at, well, engaging. And that's what we need more of. We need to engage more families, and we need to engage and build those relationships. And so I would love to see that happen.
Stephanie?
Could you repeat the question?
What future collaborations between Winona Area Public Schools and other institutions or organizations do you believe may contribute to improving the district and the Winona community, and how so?
Winona Volunteer Services is a good community organization. They actually provide a lot of food and clothing to our community members. And they're always looking for people to volunteer or something around the lines of home delivered meals to get kids from our community that are in our schools, possibly in some form to be able to talk to these older people in our community and just touch base with them. I mean, there's a lot of different organizations in Winona that could be turned into something that is a program with the school. There's just so many opportunities that aren't being addressed at this time, and we would really tap into that. Thank you.
Tori?
Well, we have an incredible local business community here in this town, and I think reaching out to them, offering things like internships, offering tours and training in order to kind of give an idea of what else is out there for some of these students, I think would be an awesome idea. Another one too, I think that's been lost in the past has been the community outreach side of it. Having the school district reach out, go into the community, talk to people, do whether it's surveys or anything like that. Find out what the real needs are from the folks within the community and go in and say, you know what, how do we make this better? I think that communication, especially what I've seen over the last 10 years, that communication is not there as much as it could be. And I think that community outreach, giving people a voice within the school and being responsive to that voice would be great. And then beyond that, I mean, there's all sorts of other great organizations within town. Engage Winona is one of them. And just being able to reach out and say, you know what, hey, give us the feedback. Tell us what you're looking for.
Thank you. For our next question, we'll start with Tesla. The average class size at the high school is in the mid-30s. Do you think class sizes should be larger, smaller, or are they just right? And if you would change it, how would you propose paying for that?
Ooh, great question. Personally, I love the idea of small class sizes or smaller than 30. I'd say around the 20 range would be the perfect amount. Even smaller would be awesome as well, just because there's the ability to have more one-on-one attention, as well as just creating a nice environment. As far as how to pay for that, you know, I'm not sure, but I'm sure that there are some creative ways to make that done. Yeah, I haven't explored different funding options for that specifically, but I do like the idea and I like the question. So thank you for whoever sent that along.
Stephanie?
I actually am curious where that statistic came from, or if it's an actual number from our student class sizes. Because our, according to the website for the Minnesota Department of Education, it shows our class sizes for the Winona Area Public Schools is 15-1. So I would say that student teachers in our classrooms is always a great opportunity for Winona State students to learn or St. Mary students to learn. And that would definitely help out with the large class sizes. And that's all I have for you. Thank you.
Tori?
I think anytime class sizes are too large, makes it extremely difficult for students to learn and teachers to teach. And so, yes, I'd love to see smaller class sizes. Obviously, the challenge there is paying for them. I think there's definitely some interesting or certain creative ways we could do that. What I see from the Rios program, the Spanish immersion program, they have international students come over, kind of part of their learning, part of their experience side. They don't pay them a whole lot, but they get really, really qualified people coming over to help out. I could see that working in other areas where maybe you have folks that have just graduated from college, need some experience, come in and they can help out, kind of a student teacher type internship type of situation. And how do you pay for it? Well, first, if we can pay for it by keeping our students within the district, that's a really good way to do it. And I think also, if you have good programs and you have good ideas of ways to build our community schools, I think you ask the community to help. The community has been helpful in the past. They passed referendums. Let's take a look at it.
Jim?
Yeah, thank you for that question. I want to piggyback on the last comment. You asked about institutions, organizations. I didn't respond to that. I was talking about community members. But I think we should continue to build bridges with Winona State, the Education Village. That's where I work. And So it's a wonderful resource to live in a college town. But to answer this question, that's a hypothetical, and school board members do not deal with hypotheticals. Unfortunately, that's not something we can just start envisioning utopia. So I want smaller class sizes, and so my answer is it's the long game. I want us to have a rigorous, strong, sturdy curriculum and school district that stands the test of time. That means we need to fulfill the 5 goals of the World's Best Workforce Strategic Plan, and then therefore enrollment will come. So it's the long game. Thank you.
Right, next question, we will start with Stephanie. The school board has adopted a code of ethics policy that contains 42 agreements. How will you carry out your obligation to support the agreement to support the decision of the school board, even if your position concerning that issue was different?
I guess I have not looked at the 42 statements in the Code of Ethics, so I can't reply to that question with a decent answer. My apologies.
Tori?
Could you restate the question just once more time?
The school board has adopted a code of ethics policy that contains 42 agreements. How will you carry out the obligation to support the decision of the school board, even if your position concerning the issue was different?
Well, I think part of it is, part of the reason I think we have school boards, we have organizations, you have people with differing opinions. Different ideas always lead to better things. Having conflicting ideas sometimes can create opportunities for moving forward and coming to an agreement. However, at the same time, if you are on the short end of the voting stick, I don't think sour grapes is a great way for anybody to live their life. And so I think while you may disagree personally with the way that that is headed, I don't think that there is a reason to disparage the entire board. And I think sometimes you win and sometimes you lose, and hopefully everything will be unanimous, but that won't work. And so I think in some cases you educate yourself, you go back to the drawing board and maybe find a better idea that will work the next time back around.
Jim?
The answer is civility. I've disagreed with my board colleagues on matters, and that's the nature of a deliberative body if it's healthy. So here's a little tip. School board members campaign and run as individuals. That's just the way it has to work. I'm Jim Schul representing the 4th District, and I'm running again. But we govern as a team, and we need to have that team mentality, and that's at my focus. And so sometimes teammates disagree, but we're members of a team nonetheless. I'm done. Thank you.
Tesla?
So I'm gathering where this question may have come from. When I was a journalist at the Daily News, I definitely heard about some of the meetings that had some serious conflict and were not always cordial. And so, that was definitely disappointing, especially as a school board. That is the example to set for the rest of the school district. And it's really important that that's respected and honored, because it's a privilege to be there. It's something that you all helped vote in. So it's an honor to be there, and that needs to be respected. But at the end of the day, they are a team, and I hope to be on that team. And they need to act like a team, and that's very important. Balance is also a great thing. When you have people of different opinions, that's awesome. That's what democracy is all about. That is what I'm passionate about, especially as a journalist. And so we need to allow people the space to have their opinion, and it's definitely to speak without being interrupted, as well as allow people the space to have a disagreement, but do it in a respectful way.
All right, I think we have time for one more question, so we're going to start with Tori. There's a perception that public trust is and has been at an all-time low due to controversial decisions regarding lowering graduation standards requirements, school closures, adding administrative positions while cutting student services, eliminating school resource officers but adding a cultural liaison position, and bullying at an all-time high. Schools have seen a significant drop in enrollment. What would you do to bring public trust back to the Winona area public schools?
I think communication, outreach, and listening. I'm not disagreeing with any of that you just stated. I do feel, even as a citizen, that in many cases in the past, there have been some decisions that were made that were a bit tone deaf. In some cases were almost a little bit, maybe not insulting, but along those lines. And I think as a board, we may have differing ideas. As a board, we may want to go in different directions, but we have to realize that we serve the community overall, and reaching out, listening. And I think whether it's creating committees, whether it's physically talking to people, taking that input, you got to really communicate. And when people don't feel that they're being communicated with, that things are being hid, that there's secret deals going on, people really start to lose trust in their faith. And I'd like to see, no matter what the outcome of any of the elections is, that is no longer the case.
Jim?
I'm going to just tell you how I approach my job. I can't speak to rumors and innuendo. I don't live in that world. I spend the time vacuuming my house when other people might be gossiping. I don't know what's going on, but I'll tell you, I care. I give my time to my constituents. I mean, just right before I came here, I had a phone call from a concerned community member. I'm going to give them my time after this event. I might disagree, and I can disagree in a civil way with my constituents, and I do. I make sure I keep a clear communication line with all our stakeholders. There are three characteristics of a resident leader, and resident leaders need to keep this always in mind. Resident leaders need to be mindful of what's happening around them and in other people's lives. They need to be compassionate to other people's concerns. Boy, have I had to do that with COVID. And then 3, hopeful.
Thank you. Your time is up. Tesla?
Public trust, yes. So a big part of that is communication. And transparency. So one idea that I was throwing around with my campaign committee was having like a newsletter or doing like a 5-minute video after meetings, or maybe the next morning because they tend to go kind of late at times. But just doing a recap. You know, I really want to communicate with the constituents that I would be representing. And doing that in a constant, having that back and forth and hearing from them, asking them surveys that are just of my own. But also the real thing is understanding the topic really well and being able to explain it so that when someone asks or has an issue with something, so that I'm able to communicate it in a way that they're able to see some of the facts behind the decisions or whatever it is. But transparency and communication is what I lived as far as a journalist. And like I said, I'm a journalist at heart. So that's a big thing for me.
Stephanie?
I've struggled a lot with these questions tonight. This is not one of them. You need to listen. You need to listen to parents. You need to listen to teachers. You need to listen to the kids. Your community, you want to be heard, reach out. Let us know what you want. How else are we going to know? You need to get together, and we need to send these teachers surveys that don't have their work email address attached to them so that they can be honest in them, so that they don't feel like their job's on the line by answering these questions. The teachers are around our kids, if not more than our parents, and they need to be heard in this community, and they're not being heard at all. They're jumping through hoops right now to try and teach our kids, and they're not being heard by anyone, and it's making them quit. It's making them retire, and they're having to fill those positions, and they shouldn't be having to do that right now, not in this time.
Thank you. That's all the questions we have time for this evening. Unfortunately, there were many others that were submitted that we could not get to. So I'd like to encourage all of you at home to reach out to the candidates regarding their positions on topics that may not have been addressed tonight. We're now at the end of our forum, and we're going to ask each candidate to present their 1-minute closing remark. And for that, we are going to begin with Jim.
Beware of castles in the air. They are sold most during election seasons. Castles in the air are promises made that are not reasonable nor rooted in reality. Their existence is more akin to the magical world of Disney as opposed to the real world. As a result, they are promises that cannot be kept. There is a difference between campaigning and governing. When I first ran for school board a couple of years ago, I looked at the landscape of WAPS and gauged what could be a bold yet feasible vision for the district ahead. I knew the district faced financial challenges, and so it was unreasonable and unfathomable to initiate costly promises. Instead, I focused on 4 promises that I could keep, but most importantly, provide a vision and direction for our district to take. Here are the promises I gave you 2 years ago. Empower our teachers, include exceptional learners in the general curriculum, prioritize social services, prioritize school security. And we are making inroads on every single one of those promises. I do not offer you castles in the air. Instead, I offer you a mansion on the ground that will endure the test of time. Thank you.
Tesla?
So I hope that I've been able to share with you some of the things that are important to me. But as a school board member, I fully understand, or as a candidate hoping to be a school board member, I fully understand that the job is way more than the top 3 priorities. As a journalist, I have covered way too many city council meetings, way too many county board meetings. And I understand that there is so much more to it. There are unexpected topics that come up, and I'm ready to face those. I fully understand what is ahead as far as surprises come. I'm sure none of the school board members could never have imagined that they would be facing a pandemic and having to make decisions for an entire school district through that. I am committed to face those surprises that I'm not expecting, and I'm ready to listen, learn, advocate, research, and most importantly, reassess my own views based on new information, because that is exceptionally important. It's important that I am listening to you and making the best decision that I can.
Stephanie?
I just want you to say that, or I just want to say that I care about our schools. I care about my children in schools. I care about upcoming children that are going to be in our schools. I have family in every single grade level, and I find it important that we definitely have a person in the school board that cares about our families and has children in the schools so that they know exactly what is happening, whether it be with the schools during COVID or with the schools and the teachers not listening, or with the principals not listening, or administration. Will be a voice for you. I want to be a voice for the community. And I don't feel like that would be a castle in the sky.
Tori?
So once again, thanks for letting us present here. This is an awesome opportunity. And what I'd like to say is, during my years of running a successful sales agency, I've seen companies kind of rise and fall, come and go. And while a school district and school board are not completely comparable to a business, many of the principles are the same. To grow and prosper, proactive planning and investment needs to be made to ensure that you're building a solid foundation for the future. Your future results really depend on what you can do in the present time. So I'd like to see our district set ourselves up to grow stronger. Take a look at a castle in the air. It may not be something we can have tomorrow, but it's out there. Let's look at doing something like that. We owe it to our students, we owe it to our teachers, we owe it to our communities to have a vision for what we want it to be versus just have our heads down at the moment. Class offerings, smaller classes, expanded curriculums, inclusionary environments, all that stuff's extremely important. And it's also stuff that I think if we're looking ahead, looking into the future, that's going to be what we keep, what helps us keep students coming into the system rather than leaving.
Thank you to each of our candidates for participating in this educational event, as well as thank you to our co-sponsors, the Advocacy Center of Winona, AAUW Winona Branch, Home and Community Options, Project Find, Winona Occupational Rehabilitation Services, and Winona State University Department of Social Work. Additional thanks to HBC for taping this educational forum in the city of Winona for assistance with our Zoom session. This forum in its entirety will be made available prior to the general election after all of the forums have been completed, which is tonight. It may take a couple of days to get those posted. They will be available on the League of Women Voters Winona Facebook page and available through YouTube. Please join, oh, I can skip that part. That was from last night. There are no more forums for this general election. For more information on your candidates, you can also visit the Vote 411 website, and that's all candidates across all races. The League of Women Voters of Minnesota and local League of Women Voters across Minnesota have encouraged candidates to share more about their candidacy on the national website of Vote 411. We know candidates in the Winona area have submitted information to that website. The website will provide the information on candidates that are on your ballot in your precinct, so check that out for more information. If you haven't registered to vote, there is still time. You can register to vote for the general election online at the Minnesota Secretary of State's office website until October 13th of 2020. Check out their process because several items of identification must be provided to election judges. You may also find voter service information on the LWVMN.org website. Minnesota does have registration at the polls. If you choose to register at the polls, you will need to provide several items to verify your registration. Check the website of the Minnesota Secretary of State's office for details. And if you need more information on becoming a registered voter, you can call the Winona County Auditor Treasurer or the Winona City Clerk offices. LWVMN and LWV Winona, due to COVID-19, are supporting vote from home options. Registered voters may request a mail option ballot from the Minnesota Secretary of State's office website. The process is simple and easy. The website has a quick link and instructions on how you can receive your vote from home ballot. The option of registering to vote and requesting a ballot online does close on October 13th. If you're concerned about mail-in ballots arriving at the Winona County Auditor Treasurer's office, there is a drop box available at the Winona County Office Building on Washington Street between 2nd and 3rd Streets in downtown Winona. The box is familiar to many of you as the tax drop-off box. Ballots must be dropped off by no later than 3 p.m. on election day. Vote early. Early voting is available at the Winona County Elections Office or the Office of the Auditor Treasurer, and it has already begun. If you would like to vote now, you can do so at 202 West 3rd Street in Winona. The hours that's available is Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4:30 p.m. Election staff will have you fill out your ballot request. You will need a driver's license or social security number to receive your ballot. There are voting booths and you can vote and hand in your ballot right then. Early voting is available until November 2nd during regular business hours. And finally, please vote. The general election is on Tuesday, November 3rd, and the polls will be open from 7 a.m. through 8 p.m. Thank you and have a great evening.